Good afternoon, I'm David Wendell with BushcraftOnFire, and we're glad to be with you for another installment of our videos. Today we're going to set up a scenario. We've been out on the trail for approximately 4 or 5 hours, and all of a sudden we realize that the sun's going down. Now, one of the ways for me to tell that the sun's going down and how much time I have is by doing something called finger time or fist time, as Ron Hood calls it. What I can do is I can look at the sun and I can set up my fingers. If I put the sun at the top of my fingers and my bottom of my fingers on the horizon, I can see that I have approximately 30 minutes of time before the sun's going to go down on the horizon. And because in our scenario we're down in a valley, as soon as that sun sets, we're going to be in trouble. It's going to get dark very quick. So what we need to do is we need to set up a tarp system that will house us overnight before the sun sets. Now there's a lot of ways to do that. We're going to do one that is freestanding. In our scenario, we're going to pretend that we don't have trees around. We're out in a field somewhere. There aren't any two trees that are right together we can tie our tarp to. So I want to show you a quick way to set up a freestanding tarp that will house you overnight. A couple of things that I have with me. I have a walking stick that I've been using. This is a Swiss gear walking stick, and these are relatively inexpensive. They're kind of nice because they have a rubber tip on the bottom, so if I'm going over rocks, but if I take that rubber tip off, there's also a metal stake. I have that walking stick with me, and I have my everyday carry kit that you've seen on other videos. Now on the bottom of my kit, because I knew I was going to be out overnight, I do have bungee cords with the tarp. And we're going to just use that tarp to set up a quick system and to show you how easy it is and how quickly we can set up a tarp system when we need to in the bush. Now what I've done is I've laid my tarp out, and inside my tarp I have 6 tent stakes that I carry with me as well. I carry these tent stakes whether I have my tarp or whether I have my entire sleeping kit or whether I just have my bivy bag. And I also have one of those 25-foot of hanks of nylon cord that I had inside of my e-kit. So what we're going to do is show you a quick and easy way now to set this tarp up. Right. What I've done is I've come to the back end of the tarp, and I'm going to put a stake in 2 of the grommets on the back of the tarp. This grommet goes in 1 hole away from the edge. And then this stake is going to go in 1 hole away from the other edge. I'm going to draw that out tight. Now notice that these are not on the edge of the tarp. They're on the 2 grommets away from the edge. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and I'm going to move the front and stake those. I'm going to take the edge of my tarp and I'm going to draw it into a straight line to where the back stake is. And I'm going to drive another stake. I'm going to pull this out tight, drive a stake here, move it over. We're filled with rocks here in Missouri, and we had a rock right there, so we'll just move it a little bit. Then we'll move over and do the same thing on this edge, draw it out, and drive this stake in. Now what we've essentially done is allowed room to pull up the center of this tarp. And as you can see, our shelter is almost finished. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go and stake out the sides of this with the 2 remaining stakes to give us a little more room inside. So I will come back to this grommet and stake that down. Then I'll go around to the other grommet on the back side, pull that out, and stake that down. Now you can see so far we've got approximately 1.5 to 2 minutes into setting up this shelter. While I'm here, I'm just going to slip this end of the tarp underneath. That'll give me a place to keep my gear if the weather's wet. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And slip that underneath. Now all we've got to do is to erect our tent and we're ready to go to sleep. The other thing I do have is a hank of cordage, 25 foot, and I do have my trekking pole. So let's make use of that trekking pole and show you how to erect this tent freestyle. Well, now we've got it ready to go. We've got our trekking pole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trekking pole and I'm going to size it to go into this shelter right there. Now you can see that's almost the right size. We've got to make it just a little bit taller. And so we just quickly adjust this and we can raise that to the height that we want it. So there we go. I'm going to force that underneath of there, and I'm going to dig the pole down into the ground. Now we've got that set up so far. What we want to do is to put that cordage around here to pull that taut and to make sure that everything is going to stay up full. Well, I've got the cordage unwrapped, and what I'm going to do is just tie a slip knot, a half hitch, whatever, in the center of it. And I will go ahead and stick that around my pole. And that'll hold that pole nice and taut. Hold that down a little bit. And I'll just follow with the half hitch on each side to make sure it stays in place. And then I'll just tie out these edges of the pole. Now, because I don't have a lot of stakes or sticks, I've got a couple rocks here, so I'll just throw these under a rock. Tie a real simple half hitch or two in here, and that will allow me to keep this so it's not going to go anywhere, and if I need to I can just tighten it up a little bit. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and again we're coming out here at about a 45-degree angle off the post. That 45-degree angle will keep this tarp nice and tight without falling over. Throw a couple half hitches in here. I could throw a taut line hitch in here, but it's not really necessary because I can just move these rocks pretty easy. So now the only thing left to do is to go to our back stakes and to move them out, because we had them in a semi-permanent position. We'll move those stakes out to give this tarp a little more space inside. Okay, so I've got that one done. Come around, we'll move this out, and you can see how that opens that tarp up nicely there. So here's our basic setup. You can see the entire shelter's ready in approximately 4 to 5 minutes. That's pretty quick. We still have about 17 or 18 minutes before that sun goes down. So I'm going to get my gear in here and test this out. Alright, well this shelter fits me fine, and this was an 8 by 10 tarp, which is plenty big enough for me. I'm about 6 foot 3 inches, and so I need a little bit bigger tarp than a typical 6 by 8 if I'm going to set it up in this fashion. But this will keep me, if there's wind, this will withstand winds up to about 30 miles an hour. It will also keep me nice and dry. I'm not going to get wet from rain or from dew, and I'm going to have a good night's sleep. Now, perhaps you wouldn't have a walking stick with you. That's okay, because you could use any kind of stick that you found in the bush or anything else that would give you some kind of support underneath of here and hold the front end of this tarp up. So in less than 15 minutes, we've made a freestanding shelter for the night, and we have something that will keep us protected from the elements. Again, this scenario was if we're lost, if we broke down just a few minutes before sundown, or if we're down in a valley and the sun's going down faster than we thought, a quick way to make an expedient shelter. I'm David Wendell with Bushcraft on Fire. We appreciate having you with us. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and join us again for another one. You have a great day.